Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, What's New in Sequence Kinetics SP4 and SP5. I'm Ellie Stutz, Head of Knowledge and Collaboration at PNMsoft, and we welcome you all today, PNMsofters, customers, and partners to this great webinar. And we welcome, of course, for you to enter your questions into the Questions tab on the GoToMeeting interface, and we'll be taking them at the end of this webinar. This webinar is a tour of great new features in sequence kinetics, and presenting today will be Sharon Landman, who is our support specialist here at PNMsoft. So I give you the floor, Sharon.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. As Ali presented, my name is Sharon, and I'm a support specialist here in PNMsoft. So what's going to happen in the next 45 minutes or so? We're going to see some improvements and new features that we introduced in sequence kinetics SP4 and SP5. And the purpose of this webinar is actually to encourage you all to make better use of the system and consequently get happier end users and happier developers, hopefully. So as you probably noticed, if you looked at the list of the attendees, this is a mixed audience of sequencers. We have developers, marketing people, business users, administrators. Some of them are new to sequence and the others are more experienced. So we hope that regardless of your background, you will find new ideas and opportunities to improve the way processes are implemented and used in your sites. Also, just before we start, since this is a wide range of sequencers, some points may be more technical than others, but I will try and to keep this webinar as simple as possible on the higher level of what can be done with sequence and avoid detailed technical explanations of how to do all those things that we do here. All right. So again, just to put you in the mindset, we really, in PNMsoft, we value the end users and the experience that they have with the system. So in a way, we really invest a lot of efforts to make a better experience for the developers and the end users. So we will start with topics that are more related to the developers. We'll cover new features related to the administration side, the UX Studio, and some useful controls that we have added. And as we continue with this webinar, you will see new features that are more related to the actual end users, the people who actually use the system and the process. For example, flow time, as you all probably know. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to show you is actually how it's much easier now to form, to create forms. Okay, so as you probably know, one of the simplest, the main feature of sequence is the administration, and from the administration we can create new workflows. So I'm going to create a new workflow now and show you all the improvements that we've done in the UX Studio in regarding forms. So let's just create a new workflow. I'll just give it a name so I can play with it. And as you can see, this is the UX Studio. And let's say that we want to put a form in our process. Now we really, as I said before, invested a lot of time to make it very, very easy. One of the things that we noticed is that especially non-developers or business users, they really want to get started with creating forms. They want to do it quickly and without the hassle of designing the data model and taking care of that. So one of the features that we added is when we starting with a form, we just need to give it a name. For example, let's say this is some sort of request form. Click next. And now the default option when you continue is to create a form with the view first. We call it the view first feature because it lets us to first create the form's view and forget about the data model at this time. We can handle it later. So we're clicking next. And now another thing that we have here, we already have pre-made templates for us to choose from. So we can make, let's say, forms that have only 1 column, 2 column, or 3 columns. Some of them have footers, as you can see here in those small icons. So just for the example of this demo, I will choose this template here, click Finish, and see how quickly we already have a form. And can you see how nice it looks? Now, in this form, we have several cool features. For example, the title of the form is automatically created according to the name that we gave to the form. So remember, I entered just a minute ago request form. So now this is the title of the form. See how simple it is? Now, I can enter some instructions here for the users. For example, please enter details of the request here. Click enter, and there you go. We already have the subsections here. We can decide that the left subsection would be for, let's say this is personal details. And let's say that the right section would be something like the request details. Again, see how simple it is. You don't have to know much about the UI itself. You just need to replace the writings that we have here. Since this is a template, a very generic template, but it's also very useful, some of the controls are not needed. So in case you don't need them, you just select them, press delete on the keyboard, and just get rid of whatever you don't need. Okay. Now I've noticed actually, just in a sec, for this demonstration, I'm going to switch to the basic view to make it much more simpler at the beginning. Now let's say that in this form we want to have the personal details. That would be a name. So on the right, in the properties, I click on name. I type name, sorry. And let's say that this is, let's say, employee type. And let's say I don't need this label. I can delete it, and so on, and so on. Now, remember we said that when we design the form, let's say we don't care about the data, but still we want to connect it to something, so it will save the data. So instead of separately managing the tables, we can do it from here, from the form itself. See this easy menu here on the right? We have a nice new feature here where you can connect this text box control with a new field. So this is actually a new feature in Sequence. You can create a new field directly from the form, okay? And it immediately gives you the name of the field. Now let me show you another feature. Let's say that the employee type, we want to have another text box inserted. So I'm just selecting this cell in the table. I'm clicking on text box. And let's say that here in employee type, I want to create a new field, employee type. Now let's be a little bit more sophisticated here. Let's say that I want this this text box to have the name txt employee type. So I changed the idea of the text box here. This is more a developer-friendly way of doing things. And now, when we want to connect it to a database behind the form, we just click New Field, and it populates the name of the control that we gave here in the form as the name of the field in the table behind this form. So this is also a very nice way of doing things. You don't really need to care or to change any more fields. It does everything automatically for you. Now let's take it another step forward. Let's say that you want to enter a combo box. Now, for some of us, entering combo box with few options, it may require creating another table, another lookup table, and we want to make it in a simpler way, so we can just, complete the design of this form. So let's say I have another label here. Let's say this is employee. Oh no, sorry. Let's do it like department. We will put a combo box here. We will give it a name, CBO department. Just in sort. And from here, since this is a combo box, I want you to pay attention to this new line here, the edit choices. Edit choices gives you the ability to add values to this combo box directly from the form. So the choice may be, let's say that this is accounting. And let's say we want to have marketing. And let's say we want to have another one that would be HR. Okay, we can also say that we want the HR to be the default value here. So we just set it here. And this nice wizard gives us the ability to do it. So let's see, in roughly 4 minutes, we have accomplished creating a new form with a few fields that are very important for us. We gave values to the combo box that we wanted, okay? And we didn't even have to do anything on the database side, or we didn't have to even look at the markup of this form. So all these new features are available in SP4 and SP5. Okay, so let's continue to what else is new here. Remember when we saw the, oh sorry, let's go back. So we already covered the view first option. We covered the pre-made form templates. We covered the new look of the form. We call it the new CSS layout. We covered the combo box options that you can create from inside the form. We called it an inline combo box. I showed you how the new field can be used in order to automatically link between a form and a table behind the scenes. And now I'm going to show you how to use the options button. Now remember, when I started, I had all kinds of properties on the right, and I had many controls on the left, and everything looked a bit more complicated. So we have this options button here that controls the way the studio is presented to the user. So I switched to the basic view, and now I'm going to switch back to the advanced view and see what happens. When I switch to the advanced view, I get more controls in the toolbox that I can use. And also, when I click a control on the form, I can get all the properties that I can control that are related to this control. So this actually gives a very good solution for all kinds of users. So if you are a business user and you don't care much for all the properties, you can switch to the basic view and enjoy the power of the studio here. However, if you are a very experienced developer, you might want to use more controls and more options in the properties pane, so you will switch to the advanced view. Another options that you have here, which is really cool, you can switch to the custom view, which lets you choose each option that suits you the best. All right? I think it's quite nice. Okay, so now that we've seen how to use the options button, I want to pay attention to this little control here. Okay, for some of you, maybe it sounds a bit technical right now, but I hope that in a few minutes we will see things which are much more simpler. In the data source control, we have added two wizards, the configure where parameters and the configure order by parameters. Okay, so just before we dive into those two new wizards, just a quick explanation. The data source control is actually the control that connects between what the user sees in this view, whether it's a form or a grid, and it connects the data from here that is shown here to the data that is stored in the database. So this is the data source is actually the link between the database to the form. Now, sometimes you want to control which data is presented here, and you can do it from the control itself. You can do it using this where parameters wizard, which lets you filter the records in the table according to the FLD ID or according to any of the records that you already put to the form. Remember the employee type, remember the first text box that we used? It's already populated in here. And it's really easy. All you need to choose is the column you want to filter by. Choose an operator. It can be equal, greater than, lower than, and so on and so on. And you need to enter the second variable to compare to. Let's say you want to use an expression here. And let's say, please give me just the record with the FLD ID equals to 45. Click OK. You add it to the expression table here and click OK. And there you go. You created a filter to this form. How quick was that, right? And you didn't even have to manage the markup. Another nice thing that you can do here, especially when you're using grids, is use the wizard to configure order by parameters. This wizard lets you sort whatever information you want to display according to the columns in the table behind. And you can do it not only by one column, you can also do it by 2 columns and even 3 columns, ascending and descending. Again, you're doing all that without touching the markup. All right, so I've mentioned the markup a few times. So for those of you who would like to avoid the markup as much as possible, this is very useful. Okay, here in the markup you can see everything that the wizards have done. Or you can just use the designer. Now, if you're like me and you are actually a markup freak, so there's still some cool features that we've added to the markup editor. First of all, we have something that is called the auto-closing tag in the markup. Let me show you how it works. Let's say you want to create a new table. So you start with an opening tag. And just as you close the tag, it immediately creates the closing tag for you. Okay, let me show you that again. Let's say I want to open a row tag. See, when I close the tag, it automatically creates the closing tag for you, and so on and so on and so on. Another nice feature that we have here, especially it's good for the developers who work a lot with the markup. Let's say that for some reason, after working for a while on this markup here, you forgot to close a tag. Okay. One of the things that you will see. Okay, let's even take this one out, and let's take this one out, just for the demo. All right. One of the things that you immediately see is one of the closing tags marked in red. This is a hint for the developer that there is a missing, somewhere in this markup, there is a missing closing tag. Okay? And let's say you're wondering, what tag am I missing here? All you need to do is start typing the closing tab, and it automatically completes the closing tag, the closing tag that was missing. So it's just a matter of checking where you put the closing tag, and that's it. Let me just Control Z everything here. Another nice feature that we have here in the markup is the auto indent tool. The auto indent tool lets you just put all the code that you have written here, whether it's JavaScript or just HTML tags. You are able to organize everything here in 2 clicks. All you need to do is press Control A to select all the text that you have here in the markup, and then use the combination on the keyboard Shift and Tab. And as you do Shift and Tab, it just organizes the text here in the markup in a very nicely indented manner. It just makes this this markup more readable and more convenient for the developers. So these are all new nice features that we have added to the SP4 and SP5 versions. All right. Now that we've talked enough about the markup, let's go back to the design.
Sharon, I just want to cut in and encourage people who are listening to ask questions, to enter your questions in the question widget in the GoToMeeting interface on your screen, and we'll be happy to field your questions towards the end of the webinar. Go ahead.
Right, thank you, Ali. All right, that's enough about this example. I want to show you another cool feature that is called, we have an improved subview display. Let me show you how it works. I'm going to open something that I prepared for you earlier. So a lot of, many times when we use forms, we find ourselves wanting to use a view from, let's say, the request form in another form, let's say the approval form. So this is where we use subviews. Okay, it's one of the most commonly used controls that we have. Many times we want to show data from a form that we created earlier in the process, or maybe even in a different workflow. We want to present the same view in our current workflow. So we do it by using subviews. All right, so how does it work? I'm going to open the approval form for you. And I want to show you something. This entire selected area is actually a subview from the previous form. And this is what the new improved subview does for us. It shows us the design, the real design of the original form. Let me show you how how it looked here in the request form. So this is a very generic request form. This is where you put the request details, the date, the name, what exactly is the request, and who do you want it to send for approval. And in this form, we have another view that we called it the read-only view. And we want to use this view later on in the process. So I'm going to put it on the side so we can compare. Later on, we are opening the approval form. And in the approval form, most likely we would like to display the original request. So in here, we create a subview control that actually shows us, it shows us this thing over here. So basically, by allowing the subview to show exactly what the original form is showing, gives us a better way, or enables us to design the new form or the later form in a better way. Okay. Let me close that and move on to the next example. The next example that I want to show you is the data tab and how to add new workflows to a category. Okay. For those of you who are experienced with sequence, you probably wondered where did the data model pattern, where did it go? Because it disappeared from the design view. Actually, it was moved to a new bar that we have here that is called the data bar. And this is where we have together the data model and the lookup tables data buttons. So we have a dedicated bar just for this. And you can edit the data model just as you could have done it previously. And also edit any lookup tables that are related to this form. Now let's talk about adding new workflows to a category. It actually relates to order. In our work environment, often we would like to keep it in order. So we can categorize workflow according to their meaning, according to their users, according to their process. So what we have created here is the ability to add a new process directly into the category. Categories function like folders. So we see here in this example, we have a folder for internal processes, a folder for licensing, folders that are related to private people, okay? And this is a webinar folder or a category that was created especially for this demonstration. So now in this webinar, I'm going to create a new folder, a new workflow. Let's call it webinar demo 2. And this is just, the ordinary, our familiar studio. What I want you to see is that inside this category, we have the new process that we started, webinar demo 2. So it is automatically inserted to our category of choice, and also, of course, to the general category, all workflows. So if we browse here, down there, we will see another reference to the same workflow. All right, so let's move on to other new cool features that we have here in Sequence Kinetics SP4 and SP5. Let's talk about the grid. Grids are, as you know, are very useful in our forms. It is used, grids are used vastly in processes, and they already have cool features like export, sort, and paging Now, in the new version of Sequence, we have added new features that might just be the silver bullet that you were looking for. These new features are calculated column. This is where you can create a column which is the result of a calculation of other grid columns. You can also use aggregation. Aggregation is actually where you can perform, you can use aggregation functions such as sum, minimum, maximum, the last one, the first one, and so on, and display their results in the footer of the grid. And I will show you an example for this. Let's see. This is another flow that I prepared for you. Let's debug it. See, it's running. All right. So let's say that we want to manage shopping carts, okay, for example. So in a shopping cart, every item has a price, and we also choose the quantity that we want for that item. The calculated column feature lets us automatically calculate the total for that item, and we can also calculate the total including VAT. The aggregation feature lets us see in the footer of the grid the sum of all the totals, or maybe the maximum unit selected, the maximum quantity of the units selected, and even the average price of the selected items. Okay? So for instance, if I want to add another item that, let's say the price is $10 and the quantity is 10, I'll just click Insert. And you see we have a new line here. Price is $10, quantity 10, the total is 10, and the total plus VAT is $118. Okay, and immediately the footer is calculated. So this is very useful when you want to manage things like shopping carts, if you want to use insurance forms where you have to calculate all kinds of parameters, and so on and so on. Another cool feature that we have prepared for you here is the hierarchy grid. Okay, hierarchy grids is actually very, very useful. You can connect or actually nest grid within another grid, provided that there is some sort of a relation between the tables that you are connecting. Okay. In other words, it's very useful when you want to it's very useful if you want to present two or more tables that have a relation between them. For example, let's say you have a table for customers and another table for the contact details, and you want to display those two tables together in two grids that are nested within each other. Okay, so you can do it with the grid hierarchy feature. Okay, another nice example for this is, let's say you have an item information, and you have another table about how many of these items you have in stock. So you can combine those two tables together in a nested grid. Okay, and it looks really, really cool, and it's very intuitive for the users. So I'm going to show you a quick example for this. This is the grid hierarchy example. It was very important to show you how it looks live. So that's why I'm opening all these windows now here. Grid hierarchy. Okay. So this is, again, it's a very simple example, so it will be easy to understand the connection between things. So this is, it looks like an ordinary grid where we have a list of continents, But actually, if you pay attention to the left, we have this little arrow here that lets us expand this row, the first row where it says continent Africa, and give us a list of all the countries that we have in Africa. Okay, so currently in Africa there's only South Africa. Okay, and in Europe we have England, France, and Germany, and so on and so on. For instance, in Asia, no countries at all. Don't worry, it's just an example. But you can see how it works by the relations between the grids themselves. Okay, for instance, the FLD ID for the continent Africa is 1. And the continent ID in the countries table is 1. So this is the relation here. Okay, so this is how it works. We can also expand this row here and link it to another table and see all the cities that we have in South Africa. Okay, Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg. So actually in this example we can see 3 grids nested within each other. How cool is that? Okay, please note that this is not the expand details feature where you can click on a button to see more fields of the same record. Okay, these are totally different tables. All right, now after covering this, we will move on to the next topic. By the way, if you want to learn more of how to do it, okay, we have a in the member site we have a guide that explains how to achieve the calculated column, the aggregation, and grid hierarchy.
And I want to continue to encourage people to ask questions. We have 2 questions so far, but you're welcome to add your questions in the questions widget of your GoToMeeting interface.
All right, thanks, Ali. All right, so we've talked a lot about the designer and what you can do over there in the UX Studio. Now let's move to the other end of sequence, and that's the flow time. This is actually what most users see. So flow time is what eventually the end users see and use, and it actually has now a newly designed landing page. It uses new architecture. Okay, it's a brand new architecture which is based on Rich Client with WCF services. And this architecture provides a bigger flexibility of providing data to the client. So what it means in the bottom line is in this new architecture we can provide data from sequence and from other systems as well, quite easily. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Let me close that. Here's the flow time. All right, so this is the brand new landing page for flow time. You can see that it has a very nice look and feel, the Metro look and feel of and SharePoint 2013. Please notice that we have a new inbox summary control over here. It gives us a very quick summary of all the items that we have in our inbox, all the tasks that we have due for today, and how many tasks we have that are overdue. Okay. We also have a new web part summary for processes that I started, and a very cool new process web part. Okay, what I want you to pay attention now for is when we want to launch a new process, we have a new way to search for specific processes. So let's say I have this long list of processes that I can initiate, and I want to initiate a process that concerns grades. So I know the grid is in the name of the process, so I just type in grid here, click this magnifying glass, and voila, it automatically filters for you the relevant processes. And in one click, you can just start it. So basically what it gives you the option of invoking or initiating processes in 1 or 2 clicks. Okay, let's move on to other features that we have here. The other feature that I want you to pay attention for is the multi-selection. The multi-selection is a very nice feature where you can select several items together and apply a command on these items. So the commands that we have here in sequence are fetch, return to queue, mark as read, mark as unread, move to closed. Okay, so this is very nice. When you use the multi-selection feature, it gives you the default commands. What's so nice about SP5 is that these commands can be customized almost in any way. You can remove these commands, you can add new customized commands, you can even create more columns here, custom columns, let's say for print, another column for sending emails to the process initiator, just for the example of it. You can also create calculated columns here in the web part itself. And those customizations are done by XML files. We have a very detailed document for this. Let me just load it up for you. It's available in our member site. Okay. And in this document, you can find how to customize the commands that you see. You can customize the top bar, and you can also customize the options that you have in the menu. So think about all the options that you can do or implement in your company. These customizations are done using the XML files that we have on the server itself. Okay, I'm not going to dive into all the details, but this this document is available for all the members of Sequence, and you can just read it and start playing with it. All right, so this is all the customizations that you can do here in FlowTime. Okay, let's move on to more user experience related features that we have here. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're using, sometimes in messages we use time expressions. Let's say we want to have a due date for a task, let's say on Wednesday 9 a.m. But 9 a.m. in the UK or 9 a.m. on the West Coast. Okay, so we have thought about this, and actually the time can be displayed according to the user's time zone. So in this way, it's really easy to the user. Let's say he's working in an international company. It's really easy for the user to understand or to know exactly what is the due date for each task. You can implement the same thing for messages or for incoming messages. They can know when to start a task. So the timestamps are according to the user's time zone. Another useful feature that we have for the users is something called the process wall. A process wall is what you can open from the process itself, okay? And it's a very unique feature because it gives you the story of the process in a Facebook-like appearance. Okay, just from the start you can see who updated Form 1 and when was the task overdue created and when did Angela Batty was the recipient. You can know, and you can even see their images here. You can have the entire story of the process in a Facebook-like display. And we are also working on another cool feature to collaborate this with the questions and answers feature. So you really get a social collaboration around the process. Okay, all that is very specific to the user experience. All right. I think I've covered most of the topics that I had in mind. Ellie?
Well, that was an amazing presentation, Sharon. Thank you very much. We did have some questions coming in. One question was about what are the features that are available for the grid, and that's Raul is asking that. I can answer that the grid has many out-of-the-box features, and you can find them all on a document that we have, a help document in the members site. If you just go into there and search for grid control, you'll find that document. Another question we had from Brian. Brian is asking, how is it possible to define a simple email validator using regular expression validation? And the answer there is that in the toolbox in the UX Studio, there is a control called the regular expression validator. So that's what you should use in order to create validation for an email field. We did have some other questions, but they were a little more specific, so kind of answered them directly within the question widget. So if you have any more questions, you're welcome to email them in to us at support@pnmsoft.com. And Sharon Landman, support specialist, I just want to thank you very much for that wonderful presentation on what's new in sequence kinetics. And I think we all learned a lot. If you want to listen to this webinar, if you missed part of it or you have colleagues who want to hear it, it will be available starting probably tomorrow morning on our members site in the webinars area. And I also wanted to mention that we have another webinar coming up tomorrow about how SharePoint is a critical part of managing business processes, and that's coming up tomorrow. It's going to be from 4 to 5 UK time, and our own CTO, James Luxford, is going to be presenting, and I've sent you a little notice in the chat widget on how to register for that. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again in our future webinars. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.